Hello once again, folks. My name is Dan Hankowitz. Welcome to another edition of Land of Lincoln Business Spotlight, or LOLBS, as I like to call it. Very pleased today to be joined by Mr. Cory Hay, who is also in Springfield. And Cory is the president and owner at Custom Integration Solutions here in Springfield. And we're going to have a discussion today about exactly what he does, his background, and we'll get to what he likes most about the Springfield community, I'm sure. Last time, during my last episode, which was my maiden voyage into this world of video podcasting, I had a fascinating discussion with Mr. Ron Kazak of REK Services, and we ended up talking about horseshoes and all kinds of interesting things about Springfield. But my objective, for those of you joining us for the first time, is to interview other entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, other business people here in our fair community. And since we're in strict quarantine and we can't go anywhere, it seems like as good a way to pass the time as any. So Cory, sir, welcome. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate you having me.
So whereabouts in town are you hanging out? We don't need your exact address, but
Sure.
the general Springfield vicinity, where are you hanging out?
So I'm actually based out of Auburn, so a little south of Springfield, right? Yeah, not too far off.
Okay. And are you a native of Central Illinois? Sort of, what's your background?
No, I'm not. So I grew up in South Central Indiana, a tiny speck on the map called Linton. About 7,000 people know where it is because that's where they live. The rest of the world has no clue. I moved to Illinois in 2001. I was running a restaurant. NPC International is the largest Pizza Hut franchise in the world. And I moved with them to Charleston, and I kept kind of moving north and west until I got to Bloomington. From there, I ended up coming down to Springfield, and gosh, that was 2006. So I guess I've been in the Springfield area 14 years now.
So your tenure in Springfield roughly matches mine because I came here in 2000 from Chicago. So we're both at about the 20-year mark, yes?
Yeah, we're getting there for sure.
So I don't want to put you on the spot. I never like to put my guests on the spot, but I'll put you on the spot.
That's all right.
How would you compare life in Bloomington versus Springfield?
So the wife and I struggled with the Bloomington to Springfield move initially. And a lot of that was because our schedules were hectic. You know, we'd get off work at 9 o'clock at night or so and be together for the first time for the day and ready to get some dinner or something, so we might not have dinner until 10. And it was, a lot of late evenings. Then we came to the Springfield area and found that, holy cow, everything kind of closes at 10, which was a bit of a shock to the system. It's just a different world, in that respect. And it blew my mind. I get Bloomington's a college town and Springfield, not as much. We've got some smaller colleges, but not the same. So that was an adjustment to make, probably one of the bigger adjustments for us. But logistically, the cities are, just as easy to navigate. They're just as user friendly as far as being able to find what you're looking for. I will say that in recent years, the Bloomington Normal area has become a little more friendly for people that maybe you want organic foods or different types of market options that we just haven't been able to pull off here. But I'm hopeful. We've had a couple that's come and gone, but I think it'll come. It'll happen. Just we're not quite there yet. So the area is nice. The people are nice. It's, for me, everywhere I live is just what I make of it. So it's kind of up to me to enjoy it or not.
And I could say, for my part, coming from the Chicagoland area, you can get pretty much anywhere in town inside of 15 minutes. And a lot of times that's even at the outside. Being centrally located here in Springfield, food, shopping, medicine, golf, all the necessities, just a very short drive. And boy, being from the suburbs, you can sit in traffic and sit and sit and sit and sit. And people who commute to the city, when you add that up over the course of a year, it's a pretty good chunk of their lives that they're spending on commuter rail or whatnot. But anyway, Cory, we're going to talk today about your business that you run, Custom Integration Solutions. But before we get to that, sort of give us a little bit of your professional background. What are some of the things that you did before you started your own company?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, when I came to Illinois, I was running restaurants. I was working for Pizza Hut, NPC International, and I was running a Charleston store. I was helping out in the Paris store. Um, I ended up going to Decatur, location on El Dorado Street that's now closed. I was right in front of Millikan University. I moved up to Clinton, and then I kind of decided I didn't want to smell like food anymore. I made the switch to retail. I took a position with the defunct giant Circuit City. I was a home delivery professional, is what they called me at that point in time, but it just meant delivery guy. I did delivery and setup for them. And that's what actually brought me to Springfield. So I was with Circuit City in Bloomington. I promoted to an operations manager for them and took the Springfield location. It was right before the holidays in 2006. I was with them until right before they closed, right before they shuttered the doors here in Springfield. And with them, I was operations manager, sales manager. I was a little bit everything, just depending on the time and who needed trained doing what. After Circuit City closed down and we were hunting for something else, I landed at U.S. Cellular, which people in the area know. U.S. Cellular was one of the carriers in the area that now is no longer. So U.S. Cellular in 2013 shuttered the doors for everything east of I-55 in Illinois. They sold off a portion of their market to Sprint in a market divestiture, and essentially bandwidth that gets bought. And that's kind of the way cellular footholds operate. Like so many people can have certain bandwidth in certain areas. And U.S. Cellular sold the bandwidth for this area, so they closed the market. They did give us an opportunity to move with them, but we had just bought our home here in Auburn. At that point in time, when they announced in November of 2012, we had a 8-month-old. So we were not looking to make any moves at that point in time. From there, I went on to a local electrical service company out of Springfield, and I did for them what I'm doing now. Really ran their, they call it low voltage in the industry, kind of ran their audio video side of things, doing a lot of programming, installations, customer consultations, etc. And when I left them, I really didn't have a real clear expectation that, hey, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna start my own thing. Quite frankly, Walmart came headhunting and put a big number to that headhunt, and it was a tough one to say no to. So I left them and went back to retail management for a while until September of last year. I turned in the reins of retail, and we had grown this enough to warrant moving out of a full-time position and just into this. So it's been a interesting ride. We founded the company in 2017, November of 2017, and did it essentially as a side gig or a side hustle from then until September of last year. So yeah, it was the weird evolution, but we made it there, or made it here, I guess.
Let me, and I want to hear all about that, but let me just go back a bit. You talked about your experience in the restaurant industry, and of course we know restaurants are certainly hurting very much in this COVID pandemic, but it's always sort of generally been my impression that people who work in restaurant management have to do an awful lot of work, have to wear many hats. What was your experience like doing that? There's sort of nothing that the manager really won't do on a given day. Is that pretty much the case
Yeah,
in food service?
yeah, very accurate. In the industry I was in, in the company I was in, we had what we called the big two, and I'm sure this is true for most restaurants and a lot of businesses out there. But what we called the big two was our labor and our food cost. And as a leader, anything you could do to keep both of those low, higher profits mean better bonuses for you and for your leadership team. So yeah, there was no shortage of, hey, what can I do? How can I help make this better? We had, again, it was the largest Pizza Hut franchise in the world. They literally owned more locations than Pizza Hut corporate owned, so they had a lot of clout, if you will. But their marketing was all nationalized. So if we had something local as the manager, you were grassroots marketing. When I was in Charleston, I worked to get us into doing pizzas at the football games, and we weren't selling them at the games. We would sell them to the university, and they would sell them at the games. But I mean, we were cranking all day long during game days for that, and things like that were definitely above and beyond my normal scope. Because I was there to run the store and be sure the business is making a profit. But that's one way of getting the cure all into the business, which is sales. So yeah, there was no shortage of time that many hats were worn, and as you mentioned, a lot of time. But I'll tell you, if you're single and you don't have a whole lot of ties to anything, it can be a lot of fun. I mean, there were 14-hour days, no problem, and it was just a blast. The pace is crazy and almost addictive. It's at times I've got friends that have been in the business for I think 23, 24 years now, and just absolutely love it.
So, without naming names, do you have any customer horror stories you want to share with us during the time? There's got to be something crazy that happened during all that time. All kinds of crazy customers out there, myself notwithstanding, but
Sure.
anything that jumps off the page.
Yeah, I'll give you two if that's all right.
Okay.
One of which, and this was in Charleston, and remember, college town, right? Eastern Illinois University, so a lot of drunken college students, and we had one gentleman in particular come into our store one night, and to be fair, I don't really recall what the issue was. Whether it was that he was waiting on his delivery and it hadn't shown up yet, or he was wanting something for free. I really don't recall that portion of it. But he decided he wanted to be belligerent, and I'm not a tall guy, Dan. I'm 5'7", not really physically imposing. But I had a lot of the EIU football lineup on my crew. So I had some big guys. I had a couple of guys that were 6'8", some 6'6" guys. I mean, big dudes, right? This guy starts getting lippy with me, and I have no problem with that. That's fine. That's what I was there for. And I've always told anybody that's worked for me, nobody under me gets paid to get yelled at. That's what I was there for. I'll take somebody yelling at me all day long, which is fine, and I don't care. But apparently, he struck a nerve with one of my employees, who later took the store over from me, so it didn't negatively impact him. But he struck a nerve with him. He kind of got between us and told the guy, "Look, you need to take a hike. He's already told you that you need to leave. It's time for you to go." The guy decided it was his job to put his hands on this other associate, who then laid him out. I mean, just out cold. I just couldn't believe what I'd seen. And then I had to either turn around and try to figure out how to kind of diffuse the situation for my employee that was just defending himself, really, because the other guy touched him, in a company that was like, that's not okay no matter what. So that was probably the weirdest thing that just spiraled. I did in Decatur. As soon as we opened the doors one morning, this guy walks in and robbed us at gunpoint. Right when we opened this, like,
Wow.
You realize that we just opened the doors. We don't have any money, man. But and as bad as that is, a customer came in to pick up their order at that time, And after the guy left and I ran and locked the doors to make sure he couldn't get back in, she literally stood up, and this blew my mind. She stood up, just wanted her pizza and to leave. Like, the police are going to want to talk to you. You just witnessed this. And I'm not going to make you pay. I'll still give you your pizza. I'm not going to make you pay for it. And she refused to let me give it to her. She's like, no, you guys need the money. You don't have any now.
So
Okay.
she was there during the whole thing. So
Yeah,
oh,
she came in. He was already behind the counter, holding me in a server at gunpoint, taking money out of the drawer when she walked in, and he put her on the floor. And again, after he left, she still refused to even, like, she wouldn't even let me give her meal free for the bad experience of being robbed. She was like, no, you guys need the money now because you don't have any. Well, you're not wrong, but wow, and she was just completely oblivious. I don't know if it was just regular occurrence for her, or she was just, desensitized by everything. But it was weird. Restaurants, gotta love them.
so we've gone all full blown Steven Seagal, fist fights and robberies.
Yeah,
So those are some interesting stories, Cory.
yeah,
Thank you for sharing
yeah.
that.
You're absolutely
Uh,
welcome.
let's talk a little bit about. You mentioned sort of that transition period when you were working in retail. You were working at Walmart, and you started out your company sort of part time. What was the genesis of it? I mean, when did you first have an inkling that this is something that I can do on my own? I have something to offer. What was sort of that first spark for you?
Sure. Well, I'm going to back up just a little on you. So I mentioned some of the other companies I worked for, Circuit City and U.S. Cellular, both of which pulled the rug out from under us, right? 2009, Circuit City closed. 2013, the market closed for U.S. Cellular. Both of those companies were fully willing to pay for me to go back to school, and I took a semester off when I moved to Illinois. So after U.S. Cellular closed, I talked to my wife and decided, you know what, it's time to go back to school. Now that nobody else is paying for it, I think it's a good idea. It's going to cost me and not somebody else, so let's do this. So, I started that in the fall of 2013, and I think that kind of planted the seeds. I was going back for a business degree, with my bachelor's in business administration with a management and organizational behavior minor, and then decided to go on and do my master's, my MBA, at the same time. And that kind of all solidified, hey, this is a possibility, not just a dream, but a possibility. I'd always liked the idea of doing something on my own. But after I'd left the electrical services company out of Springfield and started working for Walmart, some of the things I was doing for them, they didn't have anybody else that could do it. They couldn't replace it. So there was some automation programming, some control systems that needed service around the area, and they didn't have anybody that could do it. So they called me and asked if I'd be willing to come and do it for a fee. Yeah, absolutely, no problem. So that was really the genesis. I mean, that was the the first kickstart was me getting a call back from them, and then that ballooned into some old clients of mine calling me up and wanting to make some changes to whatever setup they had, and it just kind of slowly gained a little momentum over time. And that was, gosh, let's see, I left that company in July of 17. So it was about 4 months before everything really solidified into, hey, this is for sure going to happen. And all along the way, my wife was kind of pushing and prodding. She's like, look, you've got a knack for it. You've got a passion for it. You should really do this. I mean, there's plausibility, there's market opportunity. You should pull the trigger. And, it's like, well, but I might be a little conservative about this. I don't know. I'm a little bit of an anomaly for a business owner, and I'm a little risk averse rather. But she pushed and prodded, and she kind of helped me sit down and just hash it out on, hey, this is the way it should go, and this is what we should do. And she made sense, and I had to listen to her and pull the trigger.
So custom integration solutions, what do you do?
So the easiest way, this is a tough one to describe for people. Everybody likes the idea of an elevator pitch, but there's so much that I do that's kind of tough to put it into a quick elevator pitch. But the simplest way that I try to explain it to people is I do all the fun stuff in your home. Okay, I gear myself towards residential, but think audio video setups. So think home theaters, the automation side of things, smart home products, controllable lighting, distributed audio, which really just means having audio throughout the home or outside. All of those types of things, camera systems, that's all included in what I do. Like I said, it's a little tougher to describe, but without just kind of being honest, I mean, it's the fun stuff. None of it's really a dire need, but man, if you didn't have it, you'd know it. You know, you'd know that there's something missing, especially right now during this the stay-at-home order time. You know, you would know if you didn't have all your gears firing for your audio.
So it may be kind of an obvious question. You serve the residential market, but sort of who's a typical client for you, Cory? Garden variety, do you get sort of all ages, all across the board, or what's kind of your customer sweet spot,
Sure.
demographically, geographically, however you want to describe it?
Well, I've always said have annual travel, right? So geographically, not too worried about it. But for me, I've found that the people I service are really all over the board. And what strikes me the most about some of the clients that maybe have a little more skin in the game, if you will, is I'm finding that the ones that are younger, they're a little more in tune with technology, they're not the ones that really seek me out because they are more into the DIY side of smart homes and the technology side of things. So I do find that my clientele is a little more experienced in life and not so much in the technology side of things, or they just know what they want and they realize the value of their time and why it makes sense to have someone else take care of those things for them. You know, and solid age, you know, we're I would say beyond millennial, really, just because they're the ones that have the expandable capital and have the desire to do things, but they still have enough on their plate that it's easier for somebody to do it for them.
It's always kind of a challenge when you're dealing with somebody, I would think in just about any industry, when people don't really have a good idea of what they want. They kind of have the straw man idea in their head, and you as the expert, you have to step in and say, well, that may not be so feasible. How much sort of hand holding or walking through the process do you have to do with your clients? You mentioned they have an idea of what they want. How good is that idea? Is it sometimes well-founded, or is it out in left field? How much do you have to kind of help them along in the process?
Sure. Um, you know, for the most part, I'd say that they have a pretty decent grasp. There's enough information out there that a lot of it's pretty spot on. Where people fall short most of the time is they'll see a product and they'll immediately put an expectation in their mind of, hey, this is what this product is going to do without fail every time. And that's just not necessarily the case. The fun part of what I do is I could sell somebody the exact same product. So let's take a Ring video doorbell, for example. Everybody knows Ring video doorbells because they do a fantastic job of advertising. They have all their customers advertising for them. And the great thing about Ring is it is a solid platform. It works very, very well. It's packaged well. It's priced attractively, and it looks nice. You know, where it becomes a challenge is everybody's home is constructed differently. And without getting too far into things, is all these fun new toys operate off your network, operate off of your Wi-Fi, your internet connection. However, if, for example, we're in a relatively rural area of the state, if I go out to somebody's home that's very rural and they're operating off of, let's say, satellite internet, and now they want 3 or 4 cameras around their home and they want to be able to view it from their phone anywhere in the world, anytime, it's going to pose a challenge because their network just can't handle it. Or let's say their network can handle it, but they've got an old home in Washington Park. They've got plaster and lath and all these other materials that just aren't wireless network friendly. They're going to have challenges without additional changes. So they might know exactly what they want and what needs to happen, and they're accurate. You know, the product can do what they expect it to do, but can't do it in their situation. That's why I love to get in front of people. I prefer to be in their home. People message me on Facebook and want an idea. Like, look, I can give you this idea, but the best thing to do is get in front of you. It doesn't cost anything to come and get in front of you and talk, you know. So, yeah, it's hit or miss, really. The biggest thing is just people get an idea in their head of how something should or could operate, and they take that as gospel truth. And there's other factors that need to be considered.
Have you ever had situations where somebody tried the DIY route, totally messed it up, and you had to step in the middle and fix a mess? How has that ever happened? Is that a common occurrence for you?
Yeah, it's pretty common, and the things that you see it the most in are, you mentioned these DIY things. Thinking Ring video doorbell. Think of Nest thermostats, right? Another big name out there that people see a lot. I've probably done that more so with Nest thermostats than anything, because a lot of people pull your thermostat off the wall sometime if you've never done it, and look at the wires on the back. There could be 4 wires, there could be 8 wires. It just depends on your HVAC system. Now the challenge with this is Nest does a great job, or Google Nest now does a great job of having you input what the wiring is connected to the back. And that's fantastic. And they'll tell you how to connect it to their thermostat. Where that comes into being a problem, as an example, I helped a customer out in Sherman last year. He had everything connected exactly the way it was on his old thermostat. He had the pictures to show me when he pulled the old thermostat off. He did everything right. But whoever put his old thermostat in before him just hooked all the wires in the wall up, and he only needed 4. He had 9 hooked up. He needed 4. So the Nest system was looking for other things because it sees all these other wires connected. So it's completely incorrect. So I see that quite a bit. The other thing with that is the wires are all lettered. So you have a C wire, a G wire, a B wire. A lot of people take that as meaning, oh, it's C, that's my common wire. It's G, it's my green wire. B is my blue. Y is my yellow. Not always. Sometimes, yes. Not always. So yeah, I see that the most for somebody doing a DIY and I'm coming in to fix it is that scenario. Thermostats more so than anything.
And is it kind of a blow to their ego when I'm sure in all your years of retail and restaurant management, you've learned the fine art of diplomacy where you apply that now and you have to tell the customer, well, Mr. Jones, if you hadn't messed this up so badly, does that ever come into play?
As you said, I try to be diplomatic about it all because, yeah, I'm there to take care of the problem for now, but I want to be there in the future. I want to find my way back into their home again. So absolutely, yeah, this diplomacy plays into it. And let's be honest, DIY, people will learn, isn't necessarily always DIY. I decided a few years ago to DIY remodeling my bathroom, and that was a disaster. I figured out I am not a trim and molding guy, and I can't paint a straight line to save my life. But it's one of those things I knew when to call in the towel or throw in the towel and call in help. Yeah, so a lot of times people are just they're looking for that. Gosh, what did I do wrong? And I have no problem telling them. I'll help them learn. Hey, here's where the issue was, because so as an example, that gentleman in Sherman I was telling you about, he had done everything right according to the information he had, but the way it was actually hooked up to the system when we traced all the lines back, which he never would have done. And I just showed him that. I just brought him, hey, here's what it was, because I also don't want them thinking I'm just out there doing some kind of hoodoo and it's going to work for a little bit and then not anymore. I want them to understand. And in that respect, I'd like to say I've got the heart of a teacher, because I want you to know. I want you to be comfortable with it and comfortable with me enough to, referrals. It's the absolute highest compliment I can get. So I want you to feel comfortable enough to refer me and give me that kind of compliment. So yeah, absolutely.
Since you mentioned referrals, that's a nice segue to my next question. I wanted to ask about your marketing. Obviously, as a small business person, as a solopreneur, entrepreneur, you wear all the hats. How do you do your marketing? Where do you find your clients?
So very similar to a lot of people in the area, I heavily rely on word of mouth. Word of mouth has been my bread and butter primarily. I do market on social media. I've done a little bit of the radio spots, and to be fair, that was kind of fun, but I never saw a return on my investment for the radio spots. And I know you got to do them for a long time, and like you said, small business, it's just not in the budget for now. But I do a lot of social media advertising. That's heavily where I am, primarily Facebook. I'd love to tell you I'm great at LinkedIn. I personally think I have a great LinkedIn presence. My business, I don't do enough with it, and that's my fault, of course. But word of mouth helps spread that. I don't think I could tell you a number of times that somebody said, "Oh yeah, I found you on Facebook." It's been, well, I know so and so that used you or that saw you and or knows of you, and that's where I heard about you from. I'm probably 70+% word of mouth referral, maybe 15 to 20% previous customers from other companies that I'd worked with. So we had that relationship before, and then the rest of it's, happenstance onto social media.
So obviously, this pandemic has taught us that there's just so much beyond our control. But assuming life gets back to some semblance of normalcy in the future, hopefully in the foreseeable future, where do you see the company going in, say, 5 years, 10 years? Are there areas of expansion, things that you're not currently doing that you would like to do? What's sort of your long-term plan for the company, Cory?
Absolutely. So, yeah, definitely one of the things that I see for this company is I would see in the next year or so being busy enough that I have to hire somebody. That's an immediate goal of growing it enough that I can bring somebody on and be sure that I've got work for them for the year. I don't want to bring somebody on and have to lay them off part of the year. I want to be able to provide somebody solid work, full year with no worries. So that's goal number one. A little further down the line is just keep expanding that. I'd love to be able to be more customer centric and not so much the install guy. Let's be honest. I have a horrific fear of heights, and it's part of the job though, so I've got to do it. And I would much rather have somebody else up on a ladder than me up on a ladder. I would rather spend that time schmoozing the customer and trying to, find ways to get in with their friends and family. The sales side of life and growing the business, I think, is where I could flourish a little more than just turning the wrenches, turning the screwdrivers. And that's the ultimate goal, is to get enough people under me, good, solid, well-trained people, to be able to take some of those hats for me. And there's things coming that I want to do, that I'm going to do with the business rather. really even this year. So I'm expanding into a different control system platform. I've been in talks with them over the last few weeks, so that'll be something coming out for me. That's going to be a really nice resource for myself and my customers. And I'm going to start doing essentially a service plan for my customers that have a lot of equipment. I've got people that have racks full of equipment, and that stuff, just like your phone, just like your computer, it needs updated, it needs maintained, it needs work done to it periodically. So those service plans are what I'm looking to do for people like that, to be able to give them that peace of mind. They don't have to worry about something going down during the holidays, that they've always got some service work being done and some updates being done for them.
So you mentioned that your wife had urged you along in your quest to do this full time. Is she involved in the business?
She is, in a roundabout way. She runs her own business as well. So she helps with trying to cultivate things on social media for us. She she also helps prod me along with things. If there's if there's a lull in production, she's back there saying, "Hey, what have you done to help grow things? What are you putting out there? And is there anybody else that you need to contact or talk to?" And she's done fantastic with that. But like I said, she's a solopreneur herself. She runs an in-home daycare, so she's got her hands full doing that as well. And she's an incredible one, doing both, really, doing double duty. She's a partner in crime and owner of her own business too.
But it's good to have that sounding board, somebody who's going to give you absolutely unvarnished, objective advice. And you never know if you're going to get that from maybe people who work for you, or
Yeah.
who, whose motives may not be as pure as,
Uh-huh.
so
Yeah.
that's always a good thing.
Yeah. And that point exactly is true. There's been plenty of times I've fired things off to her saying, "Hey, what do you think about this? How do you feel about me doing this?" And though she's not 100% in tune with the types of things I do on a day-to-day basis, as far as the technical ability of it, she's in tune with the whys and the reasoning behind it. And there's been plenty of times that she said, "You might want to rethink that one," or and maybe I'm varnishing that one a little for her. But yeah, there's been plenty of times that she said, "I think you need to step back and take another look at that and see, is that really the avenue that you want to go? Is that really something that makes sense to people like me that maybe don't 100% understand exactly what you're trying to convey?" And that's helpful.
So I guess in terms of the grand sweep of things, you're relatively new to being a business owner. I mean, if you've been doing it 20 years, that would be a different story. I, I hesitate to ask the question of whether was it worth it, but I kind of want to go in that direction. Are you
Yeah.
sort of as far along as you thought you'd be in terms of when you first hatched this idea, and when you kind of look back and sort of do an inventory of where you are?
Mm-hmm.
Have you landed at about the spot you were aiming for, or how did reality sort of match up with your vision at that time?
Sure. So I went into this whole thing completely looking at this like I said, like a side hustle, a side gig. That's what it was to me. I liked the idea of running my own business, but I just didn't know, gosh, is that the kind of headache I want, the kind of uncertainty? Like I mentioned earlier, I'm a bit risk averse. Do I want to hedge the well-being of myself and my family on a venture that at that point in time I didn't know if it was going to take off or not? So going from there to now, and that's been it was November 17, so not quite 3 years yet, right? 2.5 years. And the support that I've gotten from other business owners in the area, from customers and clients and friends, family, has been enough to really solidify, hey, this was the right move. In point of fact, there was one business owner in particular in town, in Springfield, that one, he does fantastic things. He's got incredible social media presence. Like, I'm a little jealous because he's so good at what he does with that. But I've known him for a long time, since before I started this company. And he has long told me, look, you need to make it full time. You'll be amazed with what changes happen. You'll be amazed how quickly things take off. And like I said, I was content for a while doing the retail thing and this on the side, because I knew I had that steady income. I knew that I had that security blanket, if you will. But I knew that we were still growing. And really what kind of pulled the trigger and put me over the edge with it was, there was a point in time late last year, well, right before I left Walmart, that I was having to push people out 6 weeks because I just couldn't get to them with, operating my full-time schedule and then this. And I sat down with my wife and used her as that sounding board. And, hey, is this where we should go? Are we ready to pull the trigger on this? Are we ready to make this, the full time? And we decided, of course, that the answer was yes. And to be fair, I've told him every day, every time I've seen him, but that other business owner was absolutely correct. His name's Jacob, and Jacob was absolutely correct. So far this year, including the stay-at-home order, we're trending 500% up year over year from last year, and that's just incredible to me. So am I where I thought I'd be? No, because I kind of figured this would be a side thing for a while, and that I might not be able to get enough business to cultivate it enough to make a difference. But I'm pleasantly surprised. Of course, I often tell people, yeah, I'm busy, but I'm never going to complain about being busier, because that means I'm doing the right things. I'm building it towards that goal of being able to sustain myself and other people, and it means I'm making an impact, and those things are important.
Absolutely. So, Cory, the big question for folks who are watching, our loyal watchers who've watched all the way to the end, we can't thank you enough. How do folks get in touch with you at Custom Integration Solutions if they're interested in your services? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So best way to find me is on Facebook. You can find me at Custom Integration Solutions Inc. on Facebook and on LinkedIn. Both of those have contact information for me. My direct cell phone number is 217-361-2465. If I don't answer it, I return it as quickly as I can. I will take texts, postcards, calls, emails, smoke signals, whatever somebody wants to use to get a hold of me. I'll respond in kind. I've got so many people that love to text, and I don't care. It doesn't matter what time of day it is. Text me. If I'm available, I'll get back to you. It's just contact. That's the thing.
And while we're at it, and I'm putting you on the spot again, perhaps, but let's put in a plug for your wife's business.
Yeah, absolutely. So my wife's name's Brandy. So she owns and operates Brandy's Daycare here in Auburn, and of course, right now, no new people with the stay-at-home order, but that's okay, because let's be honest, kids age out over time. They start going to school full time, and they don't need daycare anymore. So it happens, and she's going to have some age out in the next year or so. But she's been doing that, 4 years now. So she was the entrepreneur before I was, and helped push me over the edge. But she's been doing it great, solo, operates everything 100% top to bottom all on her own. It's fantastic.
Outstanding. Well, Cory Hay of Auburn, Illinois, President, CEO of Custom Integration Solutions. It's been a great pleasure. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that perhaps I should have? Anything you want to discuss about your business, or that you want to wrap it up, to tell the good people of Greater Springfield? Anything I missed?
You didn't ask about the horseshoes. I was a little
Oh my
surprised here.
my goodness, the horseshoes.
The
That's
horseshoe came out, and
okay. All right.
I've got to say it because Ron put his 2 cents in.
Okay.
Darcy's buffalo chicken horseshoe. That's the way to go. That's hands down. It's the best one around. I don't care what anybody says.
You see, you're gonna get me sponsorship here. We got a good thing going here.
Hey, that's all right.
Darcy's has the best one, and they're quite close to me. I'm over here on West Laurel, and
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I have no shortage of desires for fast food and all that kind of thing. We'll keep a running tally. We'll of the best horseshoes. Cory, it was a great pleasure to connect with you and to hear about your journey. And I can't thank you enough for your time today.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the invitation. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.